Thank you for joining me in my session, Managing Perspectives for Assessment Reports with Few or Zero Findings. You have probably encountered a zero finding assessment report in your role as a security professional, project manager, or even as a client. Because of our perspectives for such report, we find it difficult to present these reports as security professionals and to consume these reports as clients. In this session, we will explore how we can address these perspectives to have a successful outcome while delivering and consuming these reports. My name is Mayank Singh. I'm in the role of a practice manager in the application security practice. I have been working in the cybersecurity industry for approximately 15 years. Before joining Optiv, I held a variety of roles, including programmer, security consultant, and compliance manager. I initially joined Optiv as a technical manager on the VMR team and later moved to the application security practice as a practice manager. Let me start this session by asking this question. What are your initial thoughts when you have a zero finding assessment report or a report with just few low or informational findings that are not of much relevance? As a security consultant, we start questioning the perceived value of the assessment. Did I add any value through this assessment? Will this assessment be of any value to the client? We start doubting our assessment coverage, our thoroughness to perform the assessment. We start second guessing ourselves. We start thinking about assessment relevance. We are also worried about managing client perception. How will client react to such a report? We are skeptical about most of the things, including the relationship with the client and whether they are going to choose us next time. The most important thing is that we are not sure how to present such a report to the client. And from client's perspective, when a client encounters a zero finding report, they might question the value of the assessment. They might have doubts about the assessment rigor, how thoroughly assessment was performed, whether the security professional who performed the assessment was technically competent. How am I going to manage the internal expectations? They might wonder if the scope of the assessment was correct. And more importantly, they are not sure about the next action or future assessments. They feel lost. They might even think that they have not got the return on their investment. These are some of the thoughts that arise when we encounter a zero finding assessment report. But what can possibly go wrong if we are not managing perspectives? Let's do a deep dive into managing perspectives. We might be in a really tough situation if we do not manage our perspectives. Security personnel or service provider risk losing the client's confidence and credibility. They will not be able to convey the importance and thoroughness of the assessment since they are not sure how to present such reports. Security professionals will not be able to educate the clients about next steps. Learning from such assessments will be very limited. We will lose the opportunity to explore other services and security solutions with clients. The clients may believe that receiving periodic assessments or doing periodic assessments is pointless moving forward, which would eventually restrict their effort to continuously improve. It would damage the service provider's reputation. If we are not able to manage clients' perspectives effectively, we will eventually fail to manage clients' expectations. The results of such reports can be easily and wrongly interpreted by the client as we are 100% secure, at least in the context of the assessment in scope. due to which future risk might go unaddressed because threats are constantly evolving and assessments are point in time activities. The client might also get annoyed because of the lack of next action items. They do not know what should be the next step. Additionally, we fail to provide sufficient assurance about our service, and we also missed the opportunity to let the client know that they can use such report for their competitive advantage. So now we know what can possibly go wrong if we do not manage perspectives. But the question might arise, what are we trying to achieve by managing perspectives? In the coming slides, we will discuss how we can transform perspectives to have a successful outcome when we encounter zero finding assessment reports. We will discuss transforming the perspective of a consultant who is not confident about presenting the report to the client to a consultant who is confident about presenting the report to a client. From being fearful of losing trust and credibility to using a zero finding assessment report as an opportunity to do more business and work more closely with clients. How can we transform the perspective of a client who is skeptical about the technical competency of a security professional into a client who is confident and has full trust in the offered service? From questioning the scope of the assessment to using a zero finding assessment report as an opportunity to reevaluate the scope and explore other services and security solutions, and correctly interpreting the results of such report with the clients, thus promoting periodic assessment and continuous improvement. Let's explore the why behind an assessment. There can be many reasons why a client would want an assessment. It can be a new product that needs to be assessed. An assessment can also be triggered by a recent breach an organization might have suffered. It can be a periodic activity as per the requirements by the internal policies and controls. It can be a cross validation of the assessment performed by the internal team or other service providers. It can be a regulatory or compliance obligation, or it can be an ask from the stakeholders. These are just some of the reasons why a client would want to get the assessment done. It is important to understand the why behind the assessment because why defines the equation that matters to the client. For the first four reasonings behind an assessment, the equation that matters to the client is the number of findings because they see the return on investment as directly proportional to the number of findings being reported. They might not appreciate a zero finding assessment report. For the last two reasonings, the equation that matters to the client is just the report in itself because it is for regulatory and compliance obligation, or it might be an ask by the stakeholders. In that case, the report itself is the ROI, and no finding would mean less work and less time to be spent on fixing the identified issues. Client would be more than happy to receive such reports. So understanding the reasoning or the why behind an assessment is the key to effectively manage client's perspective. Now let's deep dive into some of the other aspects of few or zero finding assessment report. There can be many genuine and very valid reasons for having a zero finding assessment report. Adequate implementation of security controls. Organization may have implemented strong security controls such as IDS, IPS, firewalls, access controls. They might have also configured their infrastructure and applications securely. These controls can be very effective in preventing potential vulnerabilities. Use of security frameworks. Developers might have effectively used security frameworks while building applications. Such frameworks effectively prevents potential vulnerabilities. It can be a case that developers, system administrators, DevOps administrators, network administrators, and other resources and team members have been trained effectively on security best practices and they have incorporated those best practices in an effective way into their application network infrastructure. which really helped in preventing vulnerabilities. Another reason is the contextual limitation of scope and time. An assessment always comes with a limited scope and time, and it is quite possible that in that limited time and scope, issues would not have been identified. Organization might have been proactive and they might be regularly performing corrective actions. An organization might be proactive in adhering to the shift left approach, which helps the organization to identify the issues at a very early stage. They might be doing it really well, or they might be undergoing regular assessments internally or by some other service providers, which leaves less room to identify any potential new vulnerabilities. Overall, they might be having a robust security measure, a mature security program, effective testing methodology, secure development practice. Right? All the points which we just discussed can result in a zero finding assessment report. Let's quickly go through some of the points pertaining to the zero finding assessment report, which clearly highlights what a zero finding report should not be and should be. It should not be a reason for the client to be skeptical about the quality of the assessment or the technical competency of the security professional. Rather, it should be an opportunity to demonstrate the assessment rigor, which can be achieved by discussing the testing methodology, tools, process, and test cases in detail, and also highlighting the positive points. It should not be a reason to lose trust and credibility. Rather, this should be an opportunity to work more closely by exploring other services and security solutions that might be more effective going forward. It should not be a reason to lose motivation for performing periodic assessments. Rather, it should be an opportunity to reevaluate the scope and identifying if increasing it horizontally or vertically would be beneficial for future assessments. It should not be a reason for a security professional to be concerned about how they are going to deliver the report. Rather, it should be a reason to highlight and appreciate clients' commitments towards established security practices. It should not be a reason to have a negative business impact. Rather, such reports should be seen and leveraged by clients to gain competitive advantage and have a positive business impact on their stakeholders. Keeping all the points in mind we have discussed so far in this presentation, let us look at two different scenarios of delivering and consuming a zero finding assessment report. So here we have scenario 1, where Daniel, as a security professional, is trying to deliver a zero finding application assessment report to his client John. In part 1 of the conversation, Daniel starts the conversation by stating that he would be happy to answer any queries John might have. This shows that Daniel is not confident or is not sure. How can he present or give a walkthrough of the report with zero findings? But John is still expecting a walkthrough of the assessment report because John, as a client, needs more inputs, he needs direction. In the second part of the conversation, Daniel provides a very high level overview of the assessment and states that they have executed all the test cases but could not identify any potential issues. Here, Daniel does not demonstrate or emphasize on the assessment rigor or thoroughness of the assessment. He might have also lost the opportunity to explore other services and security solutions with John. This conversation clearly does not provide assurance what John needs as a client. In the third part of the communication, Daniel states that he does not see any immediate threat within the context of the assessment in scope. This can be easily misunderstood by John as we are 100% secure, at least within the context of the assessment, and there might not be a need of periodic assessment going further. This kind of conversation is highly transactional. Daniel fails to see a bigger picture and lose the opportunity to make a positive impact on the business. Can we have a better conversation through which we can provide assurance to the client and work more closely with them and eventually help them succeed? Let's look at the second scenario. As seen in the first part of the conversation, Daniel sounds more confident and is ready to give a detailed walkthrough of the report because Daniel clearly knows how to deliver a zero finding assessment report. In the second and third part of the conversation, Daniel talks about the thoroughness of the assessment. He talks about the test cases in detail, which help them to cover all the functionalities of the application. Overall, he demonstrated confidence, assessment rigor, and completeness of the assessment. In the fourth part of the communication, Daniel highlights the positive points. He appreciates the developers for implementing defensive coding techniques. John is clearly more satisfied and pleased with the assessment thoroughness. However, John had a question in mind. Does this report means that application which was assessed possess no risk? In fifth part of the conversation, Daniel states that the zero finding assessment report should not be misinterpreted, and he clearly states that it is a point in time assessment and threats are constantly evolving. Therefore, we have to continuously improve and assess the application. This highlights the importance of periodic assessments. But the obvious questions which comes to John is, what if we have not identified any potential issues again next time and we still have a zero finding assessment report? Now Daniel takes this question as an opportunity and proposes that we should have further discussion to increase the scope of the assessment, either horizontally or vertically, to gain maximum benefit within the budget. Say, for example, if the application assessment was without the source code, would it make more sense to include the source code next time? Or should we also include other parts of the application next time which were out of scope for current assessment? In part 7 of the conversation, Daniel also proposed to demonstrate other services and security solutions that might be beneficial to manage the risk more broadly, thus leveraging this opportunity to work more closely with client. John ends the conversation by reminding the client that this report could be used to gain competitive advantage and recommend that they should use this report to demonstrate their commitment to securely develop apps, which their stakeholders will highly appreciate. And such reports will also be helpful in managing regulations and compliance, if any. This conversation has provided John with more clarity and assurance. He is now aware of next steps and have complete confidence and trust on Daniel. Now let's try to summarize the traits of effectively delivering a zero finding assessment report. While delivering such reports, start with communicating positive points. Talk about the security measures in place. For example, the use of secure coding practice, secure configurations, security controls in place, etc. Understanding the why behind the assessment is key to effectively and confidently deliver such reports. Confidently demonstrate assessment rigor by reiterating the assessment methodology, tools, and techniques. Talk about the exhaustive list of test cases that include custom test cases to provide complete coverage of the scope during the assessment. Communicate the importance of continuous improvement by highlighting the point that assessments are point in time activities and, and threats constantly evolve. Therefore, it is imperative to plan for regular assessments and constantly improving on security measures. Have a conversation to reevaluate the scope either vertically or horizontally. For example, will architecture review or configurations review provide more value for future assessments? Adequately addressing future risk by highlighting the fact that security is an ongoing process and a zero funding report should not be a reason for complacency. Explore other service offering and security solutions with clients that might add more value to address the risk more broadly. And lastly, do not forget to mention client commitments toward adequately implementing security measures and highlight the fact that such reports can be a competitive advantage. I will conclude my presentation by stating that when we have an assessment report with no findings, it presents an opportunity for service providers and security professionals to collaborate and work more closely with their clients. It's an opportunity to reevaluate the strategy and scope in order to improve their security posture. It signifies that the existing risk management strategies and security practices in place are effective and have successfully mitigated potential risk. Thank you. I will be glad to take any questions you might have.